How's it going out there, YouTube? My name is Jesse, and I am the curator for the Golden Age, and this time is another
Lost Origins?
Origins.
Lost Origins of the Golden Age.
Yes, this is another Lost Origins of the Golden Age, and we're going over...
Cuckoo Khan.
What?
His name, Namor, Prince of Atlantis.
Why are you saying it like that?
That's his name, isn't it?
No, his name is Namor. I don't know where you're getting that from.
The MCU.
This is not the MCU, this is the Golden Age. Really, the only other name acceptable for him is the Submariner.
You should have gone more in depth with his cousins.
I know you wish we focused on his cousins more, but we haven't done them individually.
Focus on them more.
No, okay. The interesting thing about Namor the Submariner, and I'm going to mention this in the opener, is many people have credited his first appearance to be Marvel Comics #1, and for the longest time, that's what this was thought. I pulled up an article here, and I want to make sure that I cover this. His original first appearance is actually Motion Pictures Funnies Weekly. What happened is this was a comic book that was uncirculated, and it came out in 1939, actually 6 months before Marvel Comics #1 did. And this was planned, the characters is 36 pages. These were planned to be, I guess it was, let's see, a 36-page promotional book was supposed to be given out to movie theaters in April of 1939. Plans to distribute the comic book never materialized because the series was deemed to be unsuccessful. Now, this wasn't actually found out until 1970s. These comics, which I believe there's only 6 issues that were left, were found in the offices of a departed publisher. Now, I'm not sure of all of the stories that was in this promotional. I did find the original Namor story in this one, done by Bill Everett. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cover his Golden Age, and then I cover the original first appearance story alongside of the Marvel story, which it's essentially the same thing with a couple other pages added. So I wanted to do this lead in to mention why I'm actually mentioning both of these. So let's go ahead and lead into the Namor, the Submariner, and we'll go a little bit of a run over where he was in the comic books. I mean, Namor was popular enough that he was appearing in all Winter's comic books, USA comic books, Marvel Mystery comic books. In fact, I think he appeared in almost nearly every issue of Marvel Mystery. Not all of them, but nearly every one of them. As popular as the Human Torch. I believe he appeared on every publication that was doing, except for Daring Mysteries. I don't think he was in that, but every other publication, Submariner, the Namor, is extremely popular. Even got his own series. Now I cover some of this in the intro, so let's get into this Lost Origins of the Golden Age with Prince Namor the Submariner. Namor the Submariner first appeared in Motion Pictures Funnies Weekly #1. Now, since that is uncirculated, we would say he technically appears in Marvel Comics #1. These were both done in 1939. This was produced by Timely Comics, and the creator is Bill Everett. Before I get into the description of the Submariner, actually I actually found the story from Motion Pictures Funnies #1. So what I'm going to do is, when I'm going over the origin story, I'm going to put the pictures of each comic side by side. It's the same story, but they're colored completely differently. So I'm going to put them side by side when I do each page, which is an 8-page story, so you can see how they look. Okay, Namor was an anti-hero, basically. I mean, Namor's never been my favorite character. He's always seems quick to anger. He seems to be on the side of the villains in the beginning as much as he was on the side of the heroes. He fought with the Human Torch. Now, this is interesting. The Human Torch and Namor were appearing with the Angel on Marvel Marvel Comics, which would later be titled to Marvel Mystery with the second issue. And Namor and Submariner were pretty regular. Now, Namor would get his own comic book, which the Human Torch stories would appear on from time to time, and the Human Torch had his own comic books, which the Submariner would appear on from time to time. They would have a time when both of them would fight each other, and there was no real winner to the battle because, you want either side to win. Now, the creation of Bill Everett coming out with Namor was actually an answer to the creation of the Human Torch. Human Torch was fire and can fly, so you need the antithesis to that, which would be Namor, water, and can fly. Now, after Namor and the Human Torch would fight, they would actually team up a couple of times to, I don't know if they were fighting Nazis in the beginning. I would imagine that they were. They would team up from time to time to take down the enemies, and this is before Captain America even came onto the pages of Timely comic books. The big three at the time was pretty much the Human Torch, Namor, and the Angel. Now, Namor would get his own self-titled comic later that ran until 1949 with issues 1 to 32, and he would continue on in Atlas after that. They would pick it up at number 33, and Namor was a bit more popular in Atlas Comics than the rest, but he also wouldn't go on to have any great success just like the others. Now, Namor didn't work alone when it came to his undersea adventures. He had two cousins that he worked with, and they didn't appear in every one of his stories. I don't think that they ever appeared at the same time, but he had his cousin Dorma, and he had his cousin, what was his other cousin's name? Namora. I knew that would come to me. And they've had a lot more appearances in modern Marvel than they did back then. But like I said, they wouldn't appear in every issue. One of the interesting things about Namor is he's mostly well known for the swim trunks, the wings on his feet, and the cuffs on the wrist braces. Now, a lot of the Submariner comics that I found when I was doing the research on this is there were times when he actually wore clothes and sometimes a suit when he was above the water. So he wasn't always just in the trunks. But whenever he was swimming, he would revert back to this. Now, he didn't start... he did eventually become king of the subterranean people, but not at first. He did start off as Prince Namor, the Submariner, and then in the first issue of his self-titled comics, the Nazis would attack would drive him from his home, and then they would attack all the undersea people, and the king would die, and Namor would take over. And it's interesting how far their technology advanced. As you can see right here, they've got like these metal whales with these guns and stuff inside. It shows you that they were a lot more sophisticated than people would believe before. Now, when Captain America made his big mark in the comic books, it became the big three of Captain America, Submariner, and the Human Torch. Land, sea, and air. You were covering all your bases at that point. And that would continue all the way into the All Winners comics. Namor wasn't always the lead story. He was in his own comic book. But then we would come to the All Winners Squadron, where we started to see more of all of them until the last two issues, where I mentioned before, where all of them would work together. And like I said, I never really was a fan of Namor. Not even when I saw his first issue. I actually did not know his origin story. He's one of the very few from Timely that was this popular that I didn't know. So this origin was new to me. But his first appearance really didn't impress me in a way that I was impressed with others. I thought that he was villainous in his own way, and yeah, that's the anti-hero quality. But for some reason, this made him really popular with people. It didn't matter that he was killing people, wrecking ships, and causing havoc. I guess because heroes didn't really do that, it was something different for people, and they were like, whoa, this guy's supposed to be the hero? Well, he's not being very heroic. He was being heroic for his people, but not in the way that we would consider him heroic. But like I said, he's just always been so arrogant. Now, he did have people that he associated above the water, and they helped him with some of the things he did above water, but a majority of his stuff was relegated to the water. He was the Submariner. But that's what set him apart from any other sea heroes, not just in Marvel or Timely, but in all other comic books. Characters from the sea dealt with stuff with the sea. The fact that Namor could swim and could survive, or could fly and could survive out of water, actually made stories that he could do more than just being undersea, which probably kept his popularity up for a while. But Namor would suffer the same thing as a lot of the other superheroes, where when superheroes started to fall out of favor, so did the Submariner. He is in the comics nowadays, and whether or not he's going to work with the Avengers or work against the Avengers always seems to flip-flop by the whim of whoever's writing him, and I just wish that they could come to more consistency on what they're doing with him. Okay, so that's a little bit about Namor, the people he worked with. His mother always seemed to be a presence in some way. She wasn't always the one pushing his motivation, but she was there a lot. Now, if you are a fan of Submariner, I suggest that you find his original run of his comic book and read issue number 32, because they actually give you a flashback story where this was a Golden Age creation. So this is not a retcon origin. Retcon in the sense that this was a story that came out in the 70s to 70s to explain the Golden Age. This was actually a Golden Age printed story where they showed Namor's mother and his father, who was a surface dweller, how they met and how they were together and led to the birth of the Submariner. It's actually an interesting story, and I consider it part of Golden Age Origins because it came out in 1949. So if you ever have a chance to read Submariner Volume 1, issue number 32, it's a good laying the foundation story of something that I wish that they had done earlier to establish that history then, but it's still Golden Age established history, so I don't find it an egregious retcon. Maybe we could go over that one day if somebody is more interested in it, and I can review the entire story. But this is, we're reviewing Origins right now. I could always come back to that if somebody is really all that interested in seeing it. So let's go ahead and cover his first appearance out of the Motion Pictures Funny Weekly, and I will pair those alongside of what came out of Marvel Comics number 1, so you can see what they originally wanted to do and what they ended up actually doing. Oh, one more thing that I'll state, because I feel that this is important, and this was actually from Bill Everett. He said that the creation for the Submariner, he got it from a poem from Samuel Taylor Coleridge, the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Rime is R-I-M-E. And the way he came up with Namor is he took a lot of noble-sounding names and wrote them backwards. Namor was actually Roman spelled backwards. He said that looked the best out of all the other ones that he wrote down, and that's where we came up with Namor. Now, when the idea of the Motion Picture Funny Weekly didn't go through as was planned, then the comic book got moved to Marvel Comics, where they changed the coloring of it. So let's go into, well, actually, I thought the page was, okay, the story that was originally printed was only 8 pages, but the one that was in Marvel Comics was expanded to a 12-page story. So I'll match up the 8 pages of the original story to what appeared in the Marvel Comics, and once I get past the 8 pages, I'll cover the rest of the story and its continuation that they did in the Marvel comic books. So you can see what they added in after their original idea and how that would form the Submariner moving forward. I know I keep saying I'm going to get to the video, but there's one more thing that I wanted to mention. Namor does have is durable to the level that he becomes bulletproof. He can fly, and he can fly at a good rate of speed. He can swim faster than he can fly. I don't know if the wings on his feet are a factor in that one. He also has the ability that he can fight fire or intense heat, because he stores water into his body, and he can expend, or the water can all release from his body at the same time to put out fire. Now, I have this here from his second story to better show you what it means, but he also gets his strength from the water. So all that water expelling at once would actually leave him a little bit weakened from where he is with the water. If you've read Marvel comic books, Namor is powered. So if he dries out, he his strength. I mean, he's not anybody by any means weak, but he is weaker the longer he stays away from water. So expending all that water leaves him in a weakened state, but not so weak that he's completely vulnerable. Okay, now let's get to the story and the comparisons. The Submariner by Bill Everett. I get it's over here in the treasure chest. Here is the Submariner, an Ultraman of the deep. Lives on the land and in the sea, flies in the air, has the strength of 1,000 men, is a quick youth of dynamic personality, quick thought and fast action. From whence does he come, and what is his mission? From whence does he come? Are you sure you're using that properly? You couldn't say where did he come from? Okay, in the first panels here, we see this guy rising up in very old scuba gear. It's the 40s. What should I expect from that? Okay. A salvage ship diver comes up. A diving platform is hosted and swung to the deck of the salvage ship SS Recovery. How do you feel, Nelson? Okay, Chief, but kind of puzzled. There's something screwy about that ship. So he's lighting his cigarette, and this is the 40s. And he's talking about the sunken ship he found. I found a safe in the main saloon, all right, but it looks like somebody got here before we did. The safe's empty. Then, too, it looks like whoever rifled it hasn't been gone long. There is a knife on the deck, and it hasn't even rusted. He says that it's strange that it looked like somebody else had salvaged the ship, because he says it's recent and they haven't seen anybody else around. So what he's going to do is he's going to send 2 people down there to take a look at it. So the 2 men get to the bottom. Say, Rod, did you leave the side hatch open, or was it sprung in the wreck? No, it was closed when I was down here before. There's something uncanny about this. On the sea bottom, they converse by telephone. Okay. I'm not quite figuring that one out. In the 40s, didn't telephone have wires? They don't seem to be connected to each other. Come on, Rod, let's get inside and turn on the light. We may need it. Good Lord, Clary, what was that? A swimmer, Rod, but it can't be. No human could live in this pressure, yet now he's disappeared, and he was swimming. He can't be dead. Okay. They ignite an underwater blowtorch, which I've always find that one interesting. Now, Namor notices the divers, but he doesn't think these divers. He thinks they're robots. These robots, they can't be men. Why, they're mechanical and so ponderous, yet they are shaped like men. And certainly they are not fish. No, duh. I wonder. One of them had some kind of fire weapon. I better get out of here. And as he's leaving the sunken ship, he sees all the wires that are connected to them, and he thinks that by cutting them, he's disabling the wires to the mechanical men. Holy smokes, our lives are cut. Calling the surface, no answer. The diver, realizing their predicament, quickly shuts the air valves in their helmets, thus imprisoning the air in their suits. Telephone wires severed, they are cut off from all communication. Submariner darts through the door and attacks the divers. We see him crush one of the divers' heads. That definitely tells you how powerful he is, because these are built to take, damage. Okay. Let's see. There's bubbling coming from the surface. Nelson, the wires are dead. Anderson, get into your suit. You'll have to go below. Take lifelines and knives and another torch, and hurry. So he has another diver go down there. Let's see. Anderson finds the crushed bodies of Clary and Nelson. The Submariner watches from seclusion. Frightened and risking the bends, Anderson hauls himself up rapidly to the surface. Now, he rises up. Let's see. Back on the deck in the decompressor chamber, Anderson gasps out the report. The mate orders all hands to get to the ship under the way. There's a lot of texts in these boxes, but it's all setting up to something. So they haul at the anchor and they start to get away as fast as they can with the speed of a bullet. He springs onward with superhuman strength, seizes the rudder. Now he seizes the rudder, damages the propeller, and makes sure that the ship crashes into the rocks. And the ship goes down. Elated at the feat of his own strength, oh God, the submariner dives back into the submerged wreck. Now we see him over here going into a rock that seems to have a door to it. Dorma, open! He enters a huge chamber, chapel-like chamber, and is addressed by a beautiful robed creature on the throne at the far end of the hall. Beautiful to who? Okay. Well, Namor, privileged one, what manner of prize dost thou bring me today? And Namor exclaims that he's not quite sure, but he believes they are robots, and that he has captured them and destroyed the floating ship. Great shocks, Namor. What type of prize does thou call these? Open their encasements. Let us see what they are made of. And when he takes the helmets off, he says, they're Earthmen. And his mother, congratulations, my son. You have made good beginning in our war of revenge. Why, mother? And she exclaims to them how, let's see, men had come, well, she explains about when she was younger, and the flashback that I mentioned in 32 goes into great detail of this. She says, I command thee to ostracisify these creatures, set them in the royal chamber where they may be seen as an example of our worthy people. Done, your highness. But mother, I don't quite understand why the earth people are so bad. Wasn't my father an earthman? And then she talks about, yes, he was, and how they came to their lands, and apparently they were bombing the underwater kingdom, I think. Let's see. During the weeks that followed, they were tormented with bombardments of high explosives. Our castles were demolished, our husbands, wives, mothers, and even children were killed in droves. Which explains why they didn't really like the Earthmen very much. Now, Namor's mother, let's see, thou fen beautiful goddess of the seas, thou shalt find the ways into the hands of these white monsters. There to work your feminine wiles on our radical adventure. Get thee hence where thee is yet time. While there is yet time. Now she looks the most like the human, so she would be able to infiltrate them without it seeming odd. I mean, it's odd the fact that she's a woman on board a ship that they didn't see her before. So she goes to the surface and, let's see, not realizing what I was or why I was there and thinking me one of their own race, they hurried me to the commander, who was a good man that he was, decided that I was insufficiently clad for the climate. But the sea creatures, they can survive in the cold. After giving heavy clothes, in which I nearly suffocated, they fed me some of their food. What it was, I didn't know, but it made me violently ill. The commander took pity on me, and although I could not understand his language, tried to comfort me with his words. Now, she couldn't eat the food that we ate because her system was different. Clothes did not suit her very well because I guess the sea creatures dress differently, especially with the big clothes to weather of her climate. Now, she could swim in the water, and of course I had to frequent, for the submariners could not live out of water for longer than 5 hours at a stretch. And many of us cannot even live that long. So she's saying that members of their race, the submariners, okay, apparently that's a different race of the underwater creatures, cannot live out of water for that long. Some of them 5 hours, some of them quite less. Now, she would eventually couple with the captain, and Namor would be a result of that. And there's a lot of explanation here. And so, my son, it has taken us 20 years to build up our race to avenge the brutal harm done to us then. Now, since you are one of us left who can live on land and in water, and who can also fly in their air, and because you have the strength of 1,000 Earthmen, yeah, let's just give him all the powers. It is your duty to lead us into battle. You have begun well, but you must use strategy and great care. Go now to the land of the white people. And so Namor, the avenging son, faces the surface men in the world in what promises to be mortal combat. Now, it says more in the next issue, but we will switch over to Marvel Comics to get the last 4 pages. Okay, so Namor would go into the adjoining room and he meets up with his cousin Dorma. Oh, Namor, how wonderful. Take me with you, please. It is too dangerous, Dorma, but you may accompany me partway. Come on, we must hurry. And she says that they should take some equipment, but deciding what equipment will only hamper their progress, they travel light and leave the underwater castle with the heartfelt best wishes of the entire tribe. Now, I know that Namor is doing villainous acts in our eyes, but in his eyes, he is defending his people. So they come across a lighthouse, and he knows that if he destroys the lighthouse, a lot of ships will wreck on the shores because they wouldn't be guided by the light. So he knocks on the door, and as it's being answered, he quickly knocks out the man and goes over to the controls and disables them. He leaps at another man, and a third man pulls out a gun and aims it at Namor. Namor, look! Like a flash, Namor leaps to the window. Oh no, my friend, you don't get away that easy. The guard shrieks in agony as Namor slashes merciless blow after blow. Namor, what are you doing? Why would you ask him what he's doing? You know what he's doing. So he knocks out the others, and they quickly ascend the staircase so that they can disable the light. And as they disable it, a number of, it looks like Navy men, come up and they want to defend the lighthouse. Say, who are those people? Where do they come from? I don't know, Chief, but they're raising heck with the light. And a plane it's a pontoon plane, happens to fly by at the time, and Namor leaps up to it with his cousin in hand. They quickly take the plane and subdue the pilot, and he puts Dorma in the plane for her to fly. Dorma, I have to leave you now. Wreck the ship somewhere and swim back home. I'll get in touch with you later. Wreck the ship. I don't think that should be hard because she hasn't been giving any pilot's license. And so Namor dives into the ocean again on his way to further adventures in his crusade against white men. And the next issue does actually pick up where this is left off. But that is the full first appearance and subsequently origin of Namor the Submariner. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that you learned a bit more about the Submariner. I hope I included all the relevant information. Next week, we're going to be doing a fun one. We're actually going to give a brief recap of all of the women that appeared in the...
Oh, yeah, baby. I can't wait.
You're not going to be a part of this video if you keep that up. We're going to cover all the gals that appeared in the Golden Age. The Blonde Phantom, the sidekicks like Namor, Namora and Dorma, the blonde Phantom, all of these women that came into the comic books at the same time. That's going to be a really good one, and that's what's coming up next week. So until then, I'll be seeing you.